You know what cracks me up? And not just with me, but like any trans man. If any trans guy posts pictures of themselves like what they looked like before, there'll be a dude in the comments, a straight dude, who will say, "You look so much better before." To who? You? Motherfucker. I want you to look at me and think that I got swamp ass. I want you to look at me and think that my leg hair is 4 inches long. I want you to look at me and think that every time I fucking burp it smells like an Italian sub. I'm not trying to be attractive to a straight man. That should be common sense. That's the opposite of the goal. When you say trans men looked better before, you're indicating that we're going in the right direction. Sayonara. One time before I transitioned, I posted a picture and I had a crop top on, and this local dude commented and he was like, "I see stretch marks, sad face." And he only said that because I wouldn't get with him. This is a picture from around that time. I'm in the same room right now. And the sole purpose of this video is to let you know that in the almost 7 years that I've lived as a dude, I definitely got laid more than you. When I was growing up, my parents worked a lot, so I had a lot of babysitters. Now, even though I was a problem child in every other aspect of my life, I was a pretty easy kid to babysit. 'Cause just like in modern times, I was easy to pacify with food. It's a curse and a blessing. A blessing because I always get my money's worth at a buffet. A curse because if you dry my beaters on just one setting above average, that shit is not gonna fit me no more. Anyways, my point is, I was an easy kid to babysit. And one time I got this babysitter named Katrina. And I thought Katrina was so fucking cool because number one, she survived a California earthquake. And number two, she'd play Polly Pocket with me for hours. But anyways, dinner time was rolling around, okay? And honestly, now I'm questioning if I got two babysitters confused, but I'm gonna just continue on with the story. So dinner time rolls around and she cooks me some fish sticks in the microwave. And she introduces me to a sauce that changed my life. It was literally just ketchup and mayonnaise mixed together on fish sticks. Now, Katrina, if you're watching this, I apologize. You were a great babysitter. And you might be thinking, why are you apologizing? She's not gonna recognize you. I look exactly the same as I did when I was an infant, a toddler, elementary school student, and middle school student. After that, it was just a shit show, but anyways, I'm down in these fucking fish sticks because I got this awesome sauce. And she told me that I might want to slow down. I've eaten a lot of fish sticks. So I'm a little upset. She's interrupted my fish stick supply. So already I hold a small seed of resentment in the back of my mind. Then I put my cassette of TLC into the stereo. I loved TLC. They were the first R&B group I was ever introduced to as a kid. The first rapper was Clips. Anyways, I'm listening to Silly Ho. And she says to me, "Do you know what a hoe is?" And I say, "Well, no. Now that you say it, now maybe I don't know what it is. What's a hoe?" She's like, "I can't tell you that. You're gonna have to ask your parents." Unfortunately, she didn't understand what I had a black belt in. Obsessively asking questions. My babysitter before her, yeah, she had me on a timer of how many questions I could ask every 5 minutes. One every 5 minutes. And it was fucking torture. But game on here. I must have asked her for about 2 hours. "What's a hoe, Katrina? Tell me what a hoe is. What's a hoe?" Driven by her interruption of my fish stick supply. I knew she was uncomfortable, and I was gonna figure out what the hell a hoe was. I never found out. I asked someone else, they told me it was a promiscuous girl. I'm like, thanks, I don't know what the fuck promiscuous means, thanks a lot. What do you mean popular? 603, babes, New England. I'm from New Hampshire, born and raised. Even when I'm on camera and I get really excited about something, I still have an accent. I've shown videos of myself pre-transition where my accent was still there, albeit I'd say not as pronounced. When I started transitioning to male, I naturally started adapting the mannerisms of the men around me. My family from Massachusetts. But I did have such a New England accent before I transitioned still, that I used to get ragged on for sounding like Lois. And let me tell you something about just how, New England my family is, kiddo. I'm only third generation Irish. My family came right off the boat to Lawrence, Massachusetts. When I was 6 years old, my dad got banned from the city. Now, if you're really from New England, I don't care what part of New England you're from, you know Lawrence, Massachusetts. I love Lawrence. But you know what the reputation is, and you know to get kicked out of there, ooh, you gotta be pretty bad. Since then, my entire family migrated to New Hampshire, not just, me and my mother. And we've been here ever since. My immediate family, anyways. My extended family is pretty much still in Massachusetts. Listen, popular or not, I'm not really sure where that came from, to be honest. Whether I like it or not, whether other New Englanders like it or not, my family illuminates New England energy. Only a New England family would get a phone call, ring ring, that their 6-year-old who's autistic, who has a communication device at school, utilized a program that was specifically meant for adults and asked his teacher for his Bible and his cigarettes. Only a New Englander like me would have years of videos going out to take care of their farm in the middle of a snowstorm in shorts and slides. Only a New Englander would understand why my husband is in the same hoodie every single day for like a week straight, because that's how we do it, baby. A hoodie is a jacket. You wear that shit for a week, 7 days. Only in New England would you meet a dude like my father, who is the most loving and supportive person in the world. And yet when he takes you driving, his advice is, remember, everybody's an asshole until proven innocent. Remember to always assume that everybody's on drugs, because they are. And never trust people whose teeth are too white. I'm true New England, baby. There ain't nothing nobody can do about it. Number one question I always get asked is, does your son call you mom? And if so, does it bother you? It doesn't bother me at all that my son calls me mom. And yeah, he calls me mom. For context, I'm female to male. I have a biological son who I had before my transition. Honestly, when I transitioned, he was so young that he doesn't even remember me back then. But, everybody around me, like my family, his father and everything, like everybody referred to me as his mom. So he just kind of picked up on it. The thing is my son's autistic and he was like nonverbal for a very long time. I was thrilled that he called me anything. And now that my son does talk up a storm, mom isn't even in the top 5 worst things he's ever called me. I mean, honestly, I don't even think it's bad that he calls me mom. I take pride in it now. But let's go through some of the names he's referred to me as, shall we? Number 1, lady. Hey, lady. When he's mad at me, that's what he says. Hey, lady. Number 2, Danielle. I've never been a Danielle. My name was never Danielle. My birth name is not Danielle. 3, he was mad at me once, so when I was eating breakfast, he showed me a gif of fat back. Number 4, bald-headed, always making fun of my bald head. And 5, this ain't a name, but one morning I woke up and he told me, fix your breath. He's not a bad kid. He's got a sense of humor. What can I say? He's my offspring. It was bound to happen. So yeah, mom does not bother me in the least. I embrace it. As far as being offended, you cannot be my son's parent and get offended by every little thing that... So my kid keeps talking about a girl named Olivia. And I just figured it's probably a girl in his school or whatever. I don't know. But he's talking about Olivia all weekend, right? And he ends up giving us more of a clue today. He says, Olivia from Market Basket. I'm like, what? Market Basket is a store we frequently go to, but he's always right with my husband and I, so I've never seen him introduce himself to somebody named Olivia. Who's Olivia? I thought maybe he saw a name tag of a girl that said Olivia, and that's what he's talking about. But I asked him again, I'm like, who's Olivia? And that's when he handed his phone to me and showed me. It's frickin' spinach. Spinach. The other day on my live, somebody was talking about schnauzer dogs, and I asked my husband, what's a schnauzer? He says, schnauzers, the dogs with the Scottish accents. One time my husband came in the room, he was so excited. He goes, hey, I found a way to build a whole barnyard real easy. It's a DUI method. Did you just say DUI? He's like, yeah, DUI, like you make it at home, know what I mean? Another time my husband says to me, when I was a kid, we didn't have iPads and smartphones. We just rode our bikes and flipped up shit. I said, what do you mean by flipped up shit? He still hasn't answered me. My husband cut his thumb on a tuna can and he needed stitches. I told him, you're the only person in this world who would need to go get stitches over cutting their finger on a frickin' tuna can. He says, that's not true. There's a whole group of us online. Okay. So my kid is very literal, okay? And because he's literal, he's also very blunt. And I am the first to admit I am not the most patient person or parent. But when it comes to this specific area, I'd say I'm one of the most patient because I totally get it. As a kid, I was also just as literal, just as blunt. So much so that I had to be given etiquette lessons to learn how to act right in social situations. Anyways, we're working on similar things with my son, teaching him what's appropriate or inappropriate to say, in certain scenarios. His heart's always in the right place. Most of the time. The delivery just needs some work. Well, recently I got myself a Santa hat, and he really wanted a Santa hat for himself. I told him I would get him one, but I had to find like a kid size. I finally found one at the Dollar Tree today, so I gave it to him and I was so excited, and he was excited like he finally got a Santa hat. But I didn't take into consideration that like myself and generations before us, okay, we have gigantic domes. My kid puts it on his head and it doesn't fit. And he says, throw it in the dump. If you haven't caught on, I have zero shame. I've done a lot of embarrassing shit. I've been through a lot of embarrassing shit. And I ain't gonna stop. Cause then I wouldn't be me. One time before my transition, I dated this dude who just got out of prison. Just as a reference, this was during that time. I was not very healthy, catch my drift. I don't want to have to put a trigger warning. And I drank a shit ton of Diet Coke. Now, I had been with this dude a while he was locked up, and this was our first night together, right? And he was fresh out, so he couldn't sleep. He was up all night, even when I was sleeping. And I know that Diet Coke hit. I woke myself up. I was ripping ass so hard. One time I was walking through Salvation Army, and there was this dude there. He was so hot, he was a solid 8. But he was probably a parolee doing community service there, so that bumped him up to a 9.5. I stared at him so long and hard, I walked into a clothes rack. And he knew, cause he laughed. One time I was using voice to text to spit game to some chick. I meant to say, you look like you have a lot of individuality. Voice to text changed it too. You look like you have a lot of individual allergies. I sent it before proofreading. I used to get the words tolerable and tolerant confused. And as a teenager, a job coach told me that at my customer service interview, I should tell them that I'm very tolerant. When they asked me for my strengths, I told them that I'm very tolerable. So in school, they've been working on teaching my son, how to say hi to people and, ask them their names, how to greet them. He practices at home a lot. He'll be like, hi, what's your name? And I'll say, my name's MJ. What's your name, He's doing great at it, and it's a huge improvement in comparison to when he used to just go right up to people and say, and your name is... Except he pointed with his middle finger, so, not always received as super friendly. Understandable. But the other day we were at the store, and I'm putting everything on the checkout belt or whatever, and there was a woman right next to us, and he says, hi, what's your name? And she was so nice, I just want to say, because, whenever you're a parent and your kid says hello to somebody or interacts with them, even though, they don't have to say anything back, it's your stomach just drops or your heart drops in your stomach and you're like, please don't reject my child. But she was so nice. And she says to him, my name's Debbie, what's your name? And my kid says, by the way, who's a 9-year-old boy, my name's Debbie. We're still working on it. Oh, I got another one. I've told this one, but it's a doozy. So obviously, at the time, I didn't think this was super funny, but I can look back and laugh now. So one time we went to the vet, and my husband and we found out that our cat had cancer and she was not doing well. and I just couldn't handle it. This was my cat since like I was like 15 years old, and I sent him in because I just could not deal with it. And so he comes out, and I'm hoping he has like a prognosis or whatever, and he says to me, "Baby, I am so sorry, but unless you participate in paleontology, she's gonna have to be put down." And I'm like, what? Unless I study dinosaurs, my cat is gonna die? And he was like, no, no, study of dinosaurs, no, 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 palliative care. I got a comment earlier, but the dude deleted it. They asked me, so both you and your husband were born female, but now you're living as male. So are you lesbians or are you gay men? Well, that depends. If you're little Bobby from Arkansas driving an F-150, then I guess we're lesbians, aren't we? If you ask someone where I'm from, the sticks in New Hampshire, we're two gay dudes. If you're a dude from my hometown and you think a clean-shaven Danny DeVito is hot, you're a little fruity, baby. If you ask me, it depends. Is my husband making commission? If so, he better call me his wife. I'll put on a lace front if it lines those pockets. Okay, so I'm the first to admit that my situation, my marriage, my life is pretty difficult to grasp. Just looking at me, people think I'm a masculine lesbian, so they're like shocked when they find out I have a husband. And then they think, well, why'd you transition into a man just to date a man? Why wouldn't you end up with a woman? Isn't that the whole point? As if like transitioning, your main goal is to just like get honeys, you know what I mean? Gender and orientation, two completely different things. Nobody that I know of cuts their chest off like me, goes on hormones like me, life-changing hormones, just to get women. I could have stayed a lesbian. Then when people find out that my husband is a trans man too, I get it, and it's a little hard to digest. But here's what I have a little bit of an issue with. I looked into you a little bit, and you invest in this TV channel that, literally, like, it talks about, like, aliens and, like, expansion of the mind, like, all this stuff that, hey, I'm not knocking it. If you believe in it, that's awesome. But you're telling me, you mean to tell me that you can wrap your mind around extraterrestrial beings, which I believe in, by the way, before you can wrap it around trans people? You can think crystals are gonna heal you before you can imagine two trans men together? I don't understand. Like, do what you do. Like, I'm a religious, spiritual person, but like, come on, I'm right in front of you. Today somebody asked me, what's the most punk rock thing you've ever done? I'm so glad you asked. I grew up in a small town, and I didn't have the best reputation growing up. Some of it deserved, some of it not deserved. But I was at a point in my life where I wanted to start redeeming myself. I wanted to reclaim my spot in this town. And one part of becoming a functional member of a society is obtaining a library card. But you see, it wouldn't be that easy for me. Because my town library, they claim that I stole a book when I was about 8 years old. Ironically, it was the No David book. Oh, it was a huge thing. Now, although I was starting to redeem myself, I still held a little bit of resentment. You see, I didn't hold resentment to any kids who bullied me per se, because I wasn't a perfect kid, and kids can be mean and obnoxious, and we grow as we get older. But the adults that treated me bad, you knew better. So I walk into the library and I say that I want to pay my dues and get my library card back. Now, the same old women that were working there when I was a little kid, they were still there, and they were not happy to see me. When I asked if I could pay my dues, they looked me up in the computer as if they didn't know who I was. And they were like, oh boy, look at all these fees, that's a lot. It's for the No David book. Now already this is insulting, because do you really think even as an 8-year-old, in a library full of old women with fancy jewelry on, I was gonna steal a No David book? I already knew how to be a bad kid. I didn't need to take lessons. My daddy raised me better than that, but I digress. She told me that I needed to get my fees at $15 or less before they would reinstate my membership. So I pulled out a sack of coins. Pennies, to be exact. And I counted like $10 to $20, I forget how much in pennies, and I handed it over. She was bull. She did not want to count them, so she said to me, "Oh, actually, it has to be under $15." So I slid her another penny.